Welcome back to the Lift for Life podcast. I'm here with G-Dog. G-Dog, how are we this evening?
I'm good, and we're obviously having a discussion about my wardrobe again. I think we don't stop talking about my wardrobe. I think my first discussion with you about my wardrobe was 7 years ago, when you didn't like what I was wearing when I was running with a special sort of iPhone thing in my chest.
It was an interesting look at the time. I think there was also a couple of gym tops, which you saw other gym goers wearing in the gym at the same time who you weren't overly inspired by.
They looked bad on them and thought maybe it looks bad on me too.
So you had a bit of a freak out. You are quite known to freak out to a little bit of chat. You've also been freaking about how you've been sat, haven't you, on the podcast?
Yeah. So I'm now leaning forward a bit, and I've rolled up my sleeves a bit. So I think I'm trying to show the muscles on my forearms, and leaning forward, I think, also is quite good because it makes me look a little bit. I think when I sat back like that, I look a bit weak. Whereas when I'm forward, I'm a bit more sort of politician in control.
I'm not sure about the navy shirt and black combo.
Oh, no. It's like so many things you criticize about my
It's attire. Not a criticize. I said not sure.
You were telling me to hire somebody to clear out my wardrobe today as well. You're saying they come round to your house.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
And they will clear my wardrobe. And I'm like, I can do that myself. And you're like, no, spend all this money on someone clearing it out for you.
Hey, look, it works. And I think it'd be a fantastic move. But any other news, G-Dog? You were talking about this really exciting discovery today.
It wasn't an exciting discovery. It's just that I had a very, very busy morning at work on back-to-back Zooms starting at 6:30 in the morning. So I was just trying to explain to my fans on Instagram as I left the office that I had an excellent habit-stacking lunchtime where instead of sitting at my desk and sorting out my emails following all of the morning meetings, I decided to just go down to the office gym. And instead of sticking to the hour on the incline treadmill, clearing my emails, I was in the mood. So it was 1 hour and 10 minutes. So I looked and I ended up burning, I think, 450 calories. I mean, obviously we don't go to the gym to burn calories, but it was quite satisfying knowing that I burnt 450 calories while clearing emails, which I could have been doing sat at my desk.
I'm surprised your coordination allows that. Do you ever have any moments where there's near misses, or are you all right?
Yeah. So there was, I would say, 2 moments where emails got me a bit agitated and my feet moved to the side of the treadmill and almost caused a very dramatic, embarrassing accident. But I survived.
And you lived to tell the tale, and that's why you're here in the podcast studio this evening.
And very excitingly, you've got another new T-shirt on.
Looks fantastic, doesn't it?
Looks amazing.
Pec pop test. Good.
It works, yeah. I mean, not quite as clear as the aloe.
Oh, really interesting.
Yeah, the aloe is more viscous, sort of shiny material, and therefore the light captured the pecs moving.
Well, I'll just have to take this one away and never wear it again, G-Dog, because that's what you do, right? Any slight critique means it's in the bin. But those trackies have gone, I hope.
Yeah.
Should we crack on with the podcast today?
Let's start.
So today we are discussing, slightly inspired by yourself, actually, I'm going to be really honest. And you didn't actually react when I sent it, which was quite surprising, but I think you already knew. And it's why you're in a calorie deficit but not losing fat. Tell us, G-Dog, what are some of the things that you've discovered in the last 6 months that might keep you out of a calorie deficit?
Actually, it's the past week, isn't it? Not past 6 months.
No.
So
we have protein shake gate.
Yeah. Wait a minute. So the most recent one is Angus and I were in his dramatic sports car driving back from our sauna and cold plunge when we were discussing my diet because I'd had some body dysmorphia situation. And he learned that I was having 2 punnets of blueberries per day. And on one of them, I was having skyr yogurt. And on both of them, I was having about a tablespoon of maple syrup. And I'd said, but they're blueberries. I can eat as many blueberries as I want because it's got oxymorons in. And you said, think about the volume of calories. So I did actually check, and he's right.
Once again, it's just
Yeah.
what I find so fascinating is it was like, G-Dog, I didn't even realize you were doing this. And so when I just go, how's the nutrition side of things? And obviously the knowledge that you have, I just expect you to go, yeah, this is what we're doing. Perfect. And obviously use Calo as well. So the meal prep. And then you're throwing in just these extra calories that you seem to have this idea, well, because it's blueberries, it's fine. And we always talk about a lot of people eat healthily but don't lose fat. You've kind of fallen victim to that a little bit, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, I am a demonstration of how even icons like me can get it wrong. So just to give you the example of that particular one. So forget about the blueberries, and obviously blueberries do have calories, but forget about the blueberries. The fact that I was adding 1 tablespoon of maple syrup to the blueberries was 52 calories. But critically, they also had, the maple syrup had 12 grams of sugar per tablespoon. And sugar is what I'm trying to avoid because that has a compounding effect on fat. And most medical studies, NHS and so on, say you should have a maximum of 25 grams of added sugar to your diet per day.
So just from your 2 spoons of syrup, you were having that, and then on top of that.
And so then I'd maybe have like a protein bar or something like a Huel bar or something like that. And that's not got much sugar, but nevertheless, I could have gone over the limit.
Of what bar?
Huel?
I think it's pronounced Huel.
Huel. Okay, right. Bit about, it's similar to the Barolo. So, so it's an issue. So that's the context for this podcast topic. But you tell me, what would be your advice on the beginning of a personal training relationship with one of your clients about nutrition?
So quite simply, when it comes to approaching nutrition, people obviously massively overcomplicate it. And immediately from the get-go, they just panic because they naturally want those quick results. They might have the training actually relatively in place, but when it comes to the nutrition, I think people try and just do too much all at once. So in the first week of training with me, for example, one of the things I really get people to focus on is just taking photos of food, sending it over to me, and also starting to look into tracking those calories. But for most people, I'll be like, look, first few days, just send me photos of your food, and then we can look at what you're actually consuming. So many people will send over things like salads, right? Because they're trying to be healthier. But then they send the photo of the salad and they go, yeah, this is like a really low calorie salad. Then I go, well, let's look at that sauce there. Let's look at those sprinkled nuts you've just put on top. Let's look at whatever it is that you've added on extra there. And you very quickly realize that healthy salad you think you're having may well be healthy, but you think it's about 400, 500 calories, and it's actually double that. And so that's the big thing I get people to focus on from the get-go is once we've gone through that process, we obviously adapt things. So you don't have to sacrifice the things you're already having, but you need to realize that you will only lose fat if you're in a calorie deficit. And it's so easy with, as you've established, with liquid calories to take yourself from, because you might be on average, obviously if you're trying to maximize performance, only like 200 to 300 calorie deficit is a goal. If you're really trying to maximize performance and you're at the level that you are, like a bigger depletion than that, I just don't think for you would benefit you because your strength would be affected in performance. But very quickly, if you're not allocating the liquid calories into that, it will take you into a surplus and you won't get the results you want. So it would be that step of obviously photos, and then we set a calorie goal, and then we track that calorie goal religiously. And if you track it religiously, you do end up getting the results you want.
Exactly. And a lot of people will say it's not just about calorie deficit. There's issues with hormones and all this sort of stuff. And I went through a lot of medical research in preparation for this podcast from, Harvard Medical, NHS, all the usual places. And everyone says, if you are genuinely in a calorie deficit, fat loss will happen. It's basic energy balance. It's a fundamental law that every single piece of science, every single medical institution adheres to. You need to be in a calorie deficit in order to lose weight. Now, there are things in your life, such as hormonal cycles and everything, which will change the impact of your calories on you and the way you feel nutrition and the way that your hunger affects you. But nevertheless, it's ultimately a calorie deficit or not.
Absolutely.
And to your point, one of the most important aspects that everybody forgets is the impact of liquid. So people will say, I'm eating XYZ, therefore I'm in a calorie deficit. And they'll forget that they're having a coffee with milk in it. God forbid you have one of these fancy Starbucks coffees with added squirts of vanilla essence, which is basically the same as my maple syrup, 50 calories per squirt. Maybe adding on some sort of squirt of cream. So you're basically turning your coffee into a dessert, and your coffee ends up being maybe 500 calories versus a standard, I think cappuccino would be about 150, 200 calories, something like that. And just by converting, as I did years ago, to a black Americano, where you've got almost 0 calories, has a massive difference. Even a white Americano is only adding maybe, 10 or 20 calories to it. But it's better than going, just avoid anything with huge amounts of milk. Even if it's oat milk or anything, oat milk, almond milk, they're all the same. The calorie content is not lower just because it's not got cow's milk in it.
To give you an example of some of the liquid calories as well. So as you said about cappuccino, average cappuccino, 140 calories. One of the things that I will never understand is why people would drink a normal fizzy drink. So one that's got, let's say a can of Coke, 30 grams of sugar and 130 calories for your average can of Coke. And obviously there is an alternative of Coke Zero or Diet Coke. And I know some people say, oh, sweetener, we actually will have an episode to come out in weeks to come, and we are going to be debunking the whole sweetener myth as well, because a lot of people say, oh, it can cause cancer. If you wanted to have any concern of cancer side effects when it comes to Diet Coke, you'd have to be drinking 14 cans a day. So I think you'll be all right. And obviously things like butter as well. Like, you might be having your morning breakfast, a really good breakfast, let's say, super healthy and nutritious, it's going to fill you up, of your sourdough toast, butter, avocado, smoked salmon, and poached eggs. You could, without even realizing, that whole thing, save yourself half the calories you add on. So you put your sourdough on, and actually, because you've got the avocado, you can sack the butter. You wouldn't realize. The avocado as well is extremely high calorie, and no, it is good for you, but you need to work out how much avocado you're having. And a lot of people will then drizzle olive oil on that avocado. So then that adds another, at least, and we talk about, tablespoon, 120 calories. That drizzle could be 200 calories without you even realizing. People cooking their eggs with butter. And then smoked salmon, obviously you usually have it as it is. But if we just sacrifice the olive oil, the butter, and on top of that,
reduce the volume of avocado,
you would save yourself at least 500 calories.
The avocado thing is a really interesting thing because a huge number of people that I know, obviously it's very popular in Australia, have avocado toast because they think it's very healthy, because everyone knows avocados are healthy fats. But they forget it's very calorific. Avocados are very calorific. So really think about, you may think you're having a healthy breakfast because you're having healthy fats, but bear in mind, your calorie intake is rocketing as a result. So think later on in the day, you're going to have to reduce other things because you've had the avocado, or reduce the volume of avocado you're putting on it. And if you're going to a cafe or anywhere that's making it for you, you can't control the amount of avo they're putting on it.
Exactly. I think also another point, I know you touched on it earlier on in the episode, is that one around hormones and stress and things like that. There will be people listening to this who will say, oh, but I'm in a calorie deficit and my hormones are not allowing me to lose fat. Regardless of that, and I'm sure you've done a bit of research into this as well, you still need to find your calorie deficit. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are saying, oh, well, that's not true because I'm in a calorie deficit and I'm not losing fat. You're not. And that is fact. The only way you can lose fat, and yes, it is complicated for some people and it's harder for some people if, let's say, with women suffer with things like PCOS, it is harder, but you still can lose fat in a calorie deficit.
I think the point of it being hard is the correct issue, because obviously your hormonal changes will affect your emotions and stuff. But I did dive into this, but I don't want to go into a huge deep dive on it. But superficially, hormones do absolutely affect your hunger, absolutely affect your energy, but it doesn't override the physics of the calorie deficit. So you may feel hungrier, therefore consume more because of the hormones. You may feel fatigued, therefore exercise less because of the hormones. And therefore, by definition, the hormones are forcing you to be in a calorie surplus because you're eating more and exercising less. So it's not because the hormones are actually making you fatter. It's the hormones are leading to actions that are making you go into a calorie surplus.
Is that all you had on the deep dog dive for that?
Yeah.
Why did you hold back?
Because I was just nervous that it was going to be a bit overly detailed. I don't know.
Are you sure you haven't got any to share?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Another thing that people make a mistake on, obviously, when it comes to taking themselves from a deficit into a calorie surplus is, of course, grazing. So it's the kind of, particularly if you're cooking for others, which G-Dog, you do a lot, but also I heard this amazing hack, which whether it's right or wrong is up to you guys to decide. But I have a client who, so they don't eat the leftovers of their kids' meals, will spray it with bleach.
What?
So they don't eat it.
But so they can't just throw it away? I think they might go into the bin and get it out.
So to fight the willpower, they just spray it with some bleach or whatever. Yeah.
Wow.
And then it means they don't eat it.
Yeah.
So as soon as they've served it, so I'm talking as soon as they've served it, and there's a little bit left, they go, no, can't have it.
I hope the kids don't think, actually, I'll go back for a bit more.
No, but I actually think, to be fair, it wasn't what I recommended, but it works. So, I know.
But I mean, yeah, quite extraordinary. But the other thing is, we discussed this a little bit before about restaurants. But when you go out for dinner to a restaurant, you've got to be careful and think about the choice of restaurant, because inevitably the chefs will prioritize the taste. The chef is not going to prioritize calorie control and nutrition. Obviously, they'll generally want to have a balanced nutrition on the plate, and they'll try and make the plate as colorful as possible and so on and so on, but they're not going to be prioritizing the calories. So in order to make it taste better, they could be adding a lot of sugar to the sauce. They could be putting, obviously, huge amounts of salt on things, which can have different impacts on your taste buds and cause you to do different things. They will obviously have dressings that they'll put on it. So you have a salad on the side, it may have loads and loads of olive oil. You're just not aware of how much olive oil, vinaigrette. So just remember, cooking oil, butter, salad dressing, sauces, pestos, gravies, marinades, all of these things have a very big impact on the calories. And that's what you get very often in restaurant foods. So when you're going to a restaurant, really think, I've got to really pull back my calories at breakfast and lunch, because if I go to the restaurant at dinner, I'm going to have a bit of a calorie overdose that I'm not expecting and I can't control. If you've got a choice over the restaurant, try and choose restaurants that have food which is a little bit more simple. So I know that I've been criticized for picking on Chinese and Indian food, and obviously French food can have a huge amount of sauces as well, and Italian food, clearly you can have huge amounts of pasta and carbohydrates and so on and so on. But generally, I think it's more likely that European food, Spanish, French, Italian, or whatever, you can control the sauces visually more. I think if you go to a Chinese or Indian restaurant, it's very, very difficult to work out what the calories are, because they're generally going to have sauces in almost every single dish. I can't think, even if you go to a Chinese restaurant and have what seemingly is the most low-calorie risk meal, which would be Peking duck, then the hoisin sauce has probably got huge amounts of sugar in it. So that's going to send you over the limit as well. So I personally think Chinese and Indian food, maybe you can get away with tandoori, because that's going to be more appropriate in an Indian restaurant. But Chinese and Indian food is riskier than European food.
Yeah, it's probably a fair analogy. I think one thing that I really try and focus on when eating out is just high lean protein, high volume of veg steamed. That's a really good way. If you want to go to a really nice meal, have nice food, a lot of the time that could be something like a steak, fish, chicken, whatever type of meat or fish it is. And then on top of that, it's so easy to be in a restaurant and they might not necessarily have it on the menu, but asking for like steamed spinach, I think always goes really nicely with any of those. And then when it comes to obviously the carbohydrates, I'm not saying don't have carbohydrates, but always think if you're going to sacrifice anything, that's the best thing to sacrifice from a calorie standpoint. And particularly if you are having steak and obviously you've got chips, it's the chips that just add the calories realistically. If you didn't have them, would you really notice it? It's like the burger, for example. When you go to the pub, actually, G-Dog and I regularly, after this podcast recording, will go and have a burger at the pub, but we never eat the chips because we know the burger is about 700, 800 calories on that menu. It says that on that menu. But then if we added the fries as well, that would take us to 1,400 calories. So that's where, when you're ordering a burger, you know, okay, I want the burger. You're not bothered about the fries. If the fries weren't there, you wouldn't even notice.
But it's also about sequencing. So what I find in that situation is the burger and the fries will arrive at the same time. You could decide to start eating the chips first. So you're filling yourself up with useless calories. Whereas if you eat the burger first, then you're having the protein. By definition, the meat in the burger is more difficult to digest than the chips are. So therefore, you're satiating yourself. And by the time it comes to finishing the burger, you don't really feel like the chips anyway because you're already full. Whereas if you eat the chips first, then you finish the chips and then you eat the burger because there's no question the chips haven't satiated you. So just think about the sequencing of how you eat things. And when I go to a restaurant, I always think about protein first. So I look at the menu, both the starter and the main course, and I think, what is the most protein dense thing in the starter list and the main course list? And then I make sure that I'm choosing that rather than some other things. Or if I'm even at home cooking for a dinner party, I'll think, okay, I may do a starter with minimal amounts of protein, but I'll make sure the main course has got loads of protein in it. If I'm doing a pasta dish to start, for example, I've got my carbs and pasta and stuff in the starter. I'll make sure that the main course is a piece of chicken, a piece of meat, that's going to maximize the protein intake for the overall meal. So balancing out the starter and main course, I think, is really, really critical in restaurants, at home, and so on. And I think this issue of making protein the center of the plate is a really important and very simple thought process.
I'd also like to state, we very much obviously push that 80-20 rule. And this is coming from two guys who are in, I like to see, as great shape, the G-Doc. So I want you guys to know, I don't follow that every time I go out because I'm now at a stage where obviously with my training, with how long I've been doing it, it's much easier for me to maintain my shape all year round. At the moment, I'm in a bit of a gaining phase, so I have gained a little bit of body fat, but I know how quickly that comes off when I just reverse things slightly. But if you are in that initial fat loss phase, you are going to have to make sacrifices because not only is it harder for you in those initial stages because of motivation, because of not seeing results, but also it takes time for things like your training intensity, the way you're performing in the gym. Like you're still very much in that learning process. So the one thing you really have to have in check is the calories side of things.
And also to think about the week as a whole, because
absolutely,
I think you can be completely on track Monday to Friday and then blow it over the weekend and then think, oh, but it's fine because I was on track during the week. Well, no, because your overall calorie intake over the 7 days has sent you into a surplus.
Absolutely.
So you've got the concept then of cheat days, which I hate the idea of cheat days. I think you can have cheat items, but that shouldn't put you into a calorie surplus. So for example, on a Saturday, during a week, I would never think of having, I don't know, pain au chocolat or an almond croissant or a raisin, a pain au raisin, something like that. But on a Saturday, I might do it, but I'll be very aware that that's 450, 500 calories. And therefore, I will lower my other calorie intake during the day to compensate for it. So I may have what's in effect a cheat macronutrient composition one day, But in aggregate, the calorie consumption is still putting me into calorie deficit. So during the week, I'll have maximum amount of protein, targeting that sort of 180 to 200 a day. I weigh 90 kilos, so I try and get 1.5 to 2 grams of protein. So I'm trying to push that 180 to 200 grams of protein a day. At the weekend, maybe I'm not going to get to that amount of protein, but I'll make sure that I'm not overdoing it on the calories.
And if you are drinking alcohol on a fat loss journey, you need to learn about the calorie content of the alcohol. I'll give you an example right now. So if you were to have 6 gin and slimline tonics, it would be 60 calories per drink. So 360 calories. If you were to have 6 pints of beer, it's about 220 calories per beer, which would take you to over 1,300 calories. So that difference is insane for the amount of calories. So yes, you might be someone who prefers beer, but I'm sorry, if you want to lose fat and you still want to drink, you have to learn. And obviously we've spoken about in the past, alcohol actually does make you fatter and it is far from optimal for fat loss. But if you are like, I want to go out with my mates, you need to be canny with your calories when it comes to drinking 100%. Because that difference there tells you everything, doesn't it?
Yeah. And to that point, listen to the other podcasts that we discussed that. Basically, alcohol delays and changes the fat oxidation process in your body. So you will store more fat if you have alcohol. So bear that in mind. I'm aware of it now. I wasn't aware of it before we did that podcast a few weeks ago. I just thought about the alcohol as being calories. I didn't think actually the alcohol is probably double the calories because of the impact it has on your metabolism in addition to the actual calories themselves.
Absolutely. I think another thing, well, my last point, you might have some more points, but I think you've got to remember your body does adapt. And when you drop your calories, it's likely that your movement will drop initially. So it's working out, okay, how many steps am I doing on my current calorie intake? I need to replicate those amount of steps when I go into a deficit, because very quickly you might realize that your obviously maintenance calories might drop because your energy levels drop slightly initially, and then you're not moving as much. So you end up being in a calorie maintenance. So that's something to be really, really vigilant on. And for the biggest trick of all when it comes to fat loss is steps. I say it time and time again, but the clients that I have who succeed on the fat loss journeys the most are the ones who do more steps than others. They might follow very, very similar training programs, but the ones that are able to take their step count from 5,000 steps a day up towards 12,000 to 15,000 when they're in a peak fat loss mode are the ones who get way better results than the ones who stick around 5,000.
Yeah. And the important thing there is that it's steps that are not boosting your appetite. So if your steps are running, then clearly your appetite level is going to rise and therefore you're going to consume more. And so if you're doing walking or incline walking, it's not going to increase your appetite as much and therefore you're not going to offset it with more consumption.
Fabulously put, G-Dog. Anything else you would like to add?
No.
Did you notice I listened to that whole episode?
Yeah, very impressed.
I'm a bit gutted we didn't get a bit more of a deep dive, actually. Why
we can do another deep dive in the future into hormonal balance.
I think we have to, because there's going to be some questions around that. But guys, thank you once again for tuning in to the Live for Life podcast. I hope you found that episode useful. We'll be diving into more and more, obviously, G-Dog's fashion sense as well. That's something that we know G-Dog's very conscious about, and just working maybe on the next episode in navy and black. Furious. Guys, as always, actually, there is something I need to point out before you all go. Is G-Dog was looking at our Spotify rating the other day and got quite upset. We are at 4.5 stars. So that shows we have quite a few haters. I know G-Dog said some things that might offend some people in the past, but it is always out of love. So if you are listening to this podcast on a regular basis, could you please give us a little 5-star rating? You'd make G-Dog very happy.
The listeners have rocketed, so it's just a lot of people are listening and not giving us a rating.
Yeah, that's the funny part. We literally, since obviously recording this a bit further on, but we have 4x'd our daily listeners from January the 1st to where we are now. So this is amazing.
Yeah.
But we need you guys who are listening to please give us a little boost on the ratings as well. Guys, thanks so much. Please like, share, subscribe. See you next time.